but for your dedication to your work, you had to make the most difficult sacrifice to go and serve your country, leaving behind a sick new baby and a mother who was still healing. Peter, 2 weeks only. Oh, what 2 weeks those were.
Abusia samo bekaya akwanhia ekosi ewo oboasen patem honom no ye de investigations ne ade ehye so na nyame adom fei na report no ababedu.
On Wednesday, 6th August 2025, the Z9EH tail number Golf Hotel Foxtrot 631 helicopter operating a scheduled flight from Accra to Obuasi was involved in a crash at Dampier Forest Reserve of Anochi Crow, Brofiejo, in the Adansi Ekruform district, Ashanti region. All 3 crew and 5 passengers on board died.
A report ni bedu ye no na Mr. Fojo ba be kire nsemu na o kire emra akwanhia no esiye osan so wie na oto aso a kire se emra akwanhia no esiye no na President Mahama ehye honorable atufo say omonti abejoku ombetena se na omahwehwe ensem no de ma sa accident ana akwanhia we nyina esiye no baaye.
The President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, directed the Acting Minister of Defense to constitute an accident investigation board.
Na Mr. Fojo eto aso a o kire mu say enam say helicopter no yanye no Ghana ha na emum China na no ntina ehu hia say black box ana data recorder no ombe send e de akọ China say de be ya ho company no na wo software na ombetimi e de decode na omohu de ekoso ana say company no na wo software and hardware na ombetimi e decode data ewo black box no mohu de ekoso ewo ho eno ti ena ma omode black box no ekupiem ewo China.
The flight data and copy voice recorder were then transported to the AVIC Flight Decoding Center in Xi'an, China, from the 12th September to 22nd September 2025. Now, AVIC is the Aviation Industry Corporation of China. The aircraft is a Chinese aircraft. They were the manufacturers. They had the software and the hardware capable of decoding and giving us the data from the flight data recorder. So we had to go to them.
It's any Mr. Fojo to aso an o chimu say enam say nhwehwemu omo ye na say omo kom achi no mo kohwe helicopter no abakwase mo niam a ekoso e wo sa helicopter ni especially emrante na omo twi helicopter no nipa miensa a omo wo sa helicopter ni mo a omo de helicopter no adwuma a Bafemi Anala Ernest Ado na afei Chum Ampadu sa nkofo miensa na hu hia so omo ko helicopter na bakwase mu no mko hwehwe enema ekoso ho.
For the history of flight, we went before the flight to see what the pilots had been doing, and it's on record that their last 3 flights before the subject flight, the same crew had flown all the 3 flights before on the same helicopter.
Na eno achi no na oto aso a ochi mu a on the 2nd of August 2025 na helicopter we etu every takrade aba bpm wo Accra ma omo san fi Accra e ko takrade back to Accra which was 1 hour flight, and on the 3rd this same helicopter no also fly from Accra to Cape Coast and back to Accra and also na 1 hour 20 minutes. On the 4th of August 2025 helicopter no also etu free Accra e ko Salman ni na medical can I say medical operations and no all ye and so take 2.5 hours e wo honum. So on the 5th no omo anya adwuma and omo je emrante no eje omo ahome Bafemi Anala Ernest Ado and afei so Chum Ampadu nipa miensa we no omo je omo ahome.
On the 2nd of August they came from their base in Takrady to Accra. It was a Medivac flight 1 hour long. On the 3rd of August, the following day, they did a flight from Accra to Cape Coast back to Accra. 1 hour, 20 minutes. It was also a medical evacuation flight, Medivac. On the 4th, they were tasked to go fly Accra to Salman, back to Accra. That was a 2 hour 30 flight. That was a bullion flight, cargo flight. On the 5th of August, they rested.
Osanso etwaso ano ochemu say Ghana Air Force almost flight limitations no it's 10 hours per week and a maximum no 62 hours per month, and at least so we 8 hours rest, but this crew no they had enough like 24 hours. And see whatever they had no was enough.
Now it helps to say here that in Ghana Air Force, their flying limitations for the crew, you have 10 hours per week maximum, 62 hours maximum per month. Before flight, it's also accepted that if you've had a rest of 8 hours, you've had enough rest and you can go to work. They had in excess of 24 hours rest.
And otwaso ano ochemu say time anaka say flight ni 8 no due to bad weather and no flight na into around that time na emom no flight ni ko 2 amra na apa ho 12 minutes 14 seconds soja for omra in agro omo time no di so so that was the timer flight ni 2 ye na as from Accra to Obuasi no as it take 50 minutes, but because the weather in Accra ni Kumasi nyina na enye no ekosanso ekoye bibi fufuro a odi sanche mu nyina ebae.
On Wednesday, 6th August, the crew for the Z9 aircraft, call sign IceCap, Hotel Romeo, India, planned to execute the task order for the Ministry of Defense. The flight was scheduled to depart at 8 a.m. with an estimated en route time of 50 minutes. The captain delayed the flight due to adverse weather in Accra, Kumasi, and Obuasi. The weather improved about an hour later. So, takeoff ended up at 12 minutes, 14 seconds after 9 a.m. Throughout the flight, the altitude changed to avoid low clouds. Now let me explain why this was so. The flight started out being conducted under visual flight rules. Now, if you're flying under visual flight rules, what it means is you're using visual references to navigate. It's a normal way of flying. So they were using visual cues to navigate to go to Obuasi. And so they had to stay away from cloud, in contact with the ground. So as the cloud base changed, they changed their altitude. Where they needed to avoid, they would avoid.
Otwaso echiremu a omo hwe say helicopter no na mefa say na ho odensem na ekoyie for dwumadi an omode kwakodi. Don't forget say Obuasi na defense minister and any team na omo ko anti galamsey programming na omo kwakoye. Enti na so omo hwe say aircraft no na pom di na say ne bibia ekoyie ansa na omode etusa akwantu no. And I'm saying, Obekaya aircraft we no 2012 and omoye and a Ghana Kokoto no 2015. And see Ushema now I say reaching a 10 years maintenance period no. Emma even almost seeking for extra expansion. I am almost 90 days from the manufacturers.
We assessed the aircraft to see if it was fit for purpose. The helicopter entered the Ghana Air Force service in May 2015, having been manufactured in 2012. And it reached its 10-year service threshold on 18th May 2025. Aircrafts have periodic checks to make sure that they are fit for service. The Air Force has 25-hour checks, 50-hour checks, and 100-hour checks. The 10-year check for the helicopter is what was mandated for this helicopter. Now, as is usual, an operator, in this case Ghana Air Force, requested from the manufacturer an extension. And it's normal, happens in civil flying, happens with any type of flying. The manufacturer gave a 90-day extension to 18th August 2025. And basically, the helicopter met all the basic safety requirements. That notwithstanding, it sort of met a 100-hour check. So the Air Force also did a 100-hour check on the helicopter before the flight. The aircraft on the day was declared serviceable and duly signed off by both the engineers and the captain. The flight data report indicates that the helicopter was in good working condition. The helicopter, however, did not have some avionic safety enhancements.
And your ultima, I say aircraft and Akasano, and there might be one of my enquiry ever because one auto flight control system, nim, terrain awareness system, nim, and to just say safety equipment be modern safety equipment be one man. That aircraft to Akasano, just as any money in nim.
The additional safety equipment that the helicopter did not have were things like the helicopter terrain awareness system or the enhanced ground proximity warning system, as you may choose, advanced navigation with terrain mapping, an automatic flight control system. And I would say that these safety equipment would have enhanced situational awareness. For instance, it didn't have an autopilot. That's advanced, the automatic flight control system, so that the crew had to manually fly the plane. So it sort of increases workload. Typically, you want to have a plane that has an autopilot. All the civil planes use autopilots, and the workload on the pilots is very low. It gives you the chance to do things and to think easily, and so on and so forth.
And I'm saying, say human errors be a almost say a crew no or man say pilot and dom no or more competent enough to handle this aircraft. And I think someone say be a rear and I say bisa and how more and I say brabia and how more nay banner says almost share sansem ni namu.
To rule out any potential human causes, we also examine the qualifications, experience, and competence of the crew. The captain has a postgraduate certificate in safety and accident investigation from Cranfield University, UK, in 2024. The captain was a qualified FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration, commercial and instrument rated pilot from Bristol Academy, Florida, USA, in April 2015, 10 years ago. Within the Ghana Air Force, he was recategorized in March 2025 as a Cat C pilot. That is, a pilot qualified to be a captain on the helicopter, the Z9 helicopter. And he had a green instrument rating. In the Air Force, they have gradings for pilots, categories for pilots from A to D. D being, depends on what you call high and low, D being for the initial, sort of, and then you go all the way to A. It's interesting to note that for quite a while, and as at now in the Air Force, the highest category is Cat C. So the pilot was totally competent to be flying this plane. The co-pilot was also a qualified FAA commercial and instrument rated pilot from Bristol Academy, Florida, and he qualified in April 2023. In December 2024, he was recategorized within the Ghana Air Force as a Category D pilot on helicopter type with a white instrument rating. To further rule out any potential human causes, we examined the medical and psychological records of the crew. A review of the medical and personal records revealed no known medical or psychological conditions in the captain, co-pilot, or technician at the time of flight. All three were described by witnesses as calm, prepared, and professional during the pre-flight activities. Fatigue or medication was not considered to have materially affected their performance on the day of flight.
Now to
the sequence of events. The flight departed Accra under visual flight rules in marginal weather. The flight to Brofuyedru was uneventful. Brofuyedru is approximately 90 miles from Accra, about 10 miles from Obuasi. As the flight approached Obuasi, visibility deteriorated rapidly due to mist and low clouds. At 9:56, the crew entered IMC, which is Instrument Meteorological Conditions. To the layman, it is they flew into clouds because they no longer could stay away from the clouds, so they flew into clouds and transitioned to IFR. Now, IFR is Instrument Flight Rules. So what it means is they now transitioned from navigating using visual cues to now navigation solely on the aircraft's instruments. The crew then initiated a climb to cross terrain that they were aware of. They initiated the climb to cross the terrain. Seconds before impact, the crew stated that they could see the high ground below, so they had gone over it. Suddenly thereafter, the helicopter that was flying up without any change in its power or in the pitch which we use to go up and down, suddenly lost height and impacted a ridgeline at about 1370 feet above sea level. And this was about 6.5 miles from the destination, and this happened at 9:58.
Interview a omo ye no de omo hu ye ene say aircraft no elake safety enhancement systems bi a che say nka ebetimi aboa ma helicopter we no sa kwanhia kura no avoid by am say helicopter no elake sa ne ma no ana say oni sa modern safety equipment bi ne ade no eno nyina aka ho ene ma sa akwanhia we itimi baaye.
Now to our findings. The helicopter was airworthy, but it lacked additional safety enhancements. For instance, the terrain awareness warning system. Now, you know, the terrain awareness warning system, for instance, is predictive. So what it does is it tells you, warns you, it gives you a better picture of the situation and puts the pilots in a better, it gives them, puts them in a position to make better judgments, to be able to see everything and be able to foretell if there are any things that could possibly create a problem. But they lack the additional safety enhancements required for the weather phenomenon over that terrain. There was adverse weather, there was limited visibility, there was rising rugged terrain, where this terrain induced complicating factors, and there were no ground-based navigational route aids en route. The investigation would like to say that from everything they gathered, the emergency response was very timely. The fact that the first responders managed to get to the site in about 2 hours was remarkable because the terrain has very steep slopes. It was raining, it was slippery. So it wasn't the easiest thing to do. When we went to the site, it was also raining and it was very slippery. And we struggled using sticks and everything to try to get up there. So looking at everything, we would say very confidently that the emergency response was very timely. The investigation determined that the accident was caused by the sudden loss of altitude and lift due to downdraft. This loss of altitude without change in power or pitch altitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. In our findings also, we said there's limited national navigational capacity, a capability for en route and remote area weather services. We also looked at training and realized that the Air Force doesn't have much simulator training. We looked at flight monitoring and realized that there was no flight data monitoring also taking place. For flight following and tracking of aircrafts, we realized that it was also not there. There's no secondary surveillance radar, no automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts, or any other real-time tracking of aircraft.
It is a what is Zema or Kikaya or Chimu says, Animano, terrain awareness system. And I feel Nema or check out one, and Ninano, a helicopter near Lakano, and no Ekofa win, and the man as how can shall win a buy. It is Anima and Nino, and no recommendations, NFE, or more deba HSA. A year Air Force for is high timer, Ghana Air Force, they should get modern aircraft. Just a auto control systems, nay, a year terrain awareness system, all these things, no, they should get it in modern aircraft, AB or mobeto, and I say so moto.
Our safety recommendations. There is a definite need to modernize the fleet of the Ghana Air Force. We have recommended that the Air Force acquire modern aircraft with terrain avoidance warning systems and modern navigation systems. That the aircraft should have cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders, which are the audiovisual capable types. That the Air Force should invest in simulators for recurrent training. That they contract certified aviation weather provider or providers, and that Ghana as a nation should try to have en route navigational aids, especially in remote areas. The Air Force should seriously consider establishing flight data monitoring and en route tracking systems. And finally, we believe that they need to acquire ground support equipment, modernize what they have.
And the recommendations are ordered by no H1. As aircraft, no, Ghana Air Force, omutuminya modern aircraft, what terrain awareness system, what auto control system, and I think soon audio visuals near the Nina ebi ewum. Na said be abeboa momotumi omujuma.
In conclusion, the helicopter accident was an unfortunate and sudden weather-related accident. Implementing the safety recommendations will prevent the reoccurrence of future accidents.
Abusianti o wie bibia no e na o kire mu a accident ni siesi no unfortunate ni nyina no enam ewiemu sakraye na ekofa asa akwanhia we ba ma nipa polepole enwotwe omo nyina ehwere omo nkwa nipa na omo wom helicopter ni mu ye Dr. Omanibo Ama, Alhaji Mutala, Alhaji Muniru, Dr. Osesapon, ena Samuel Aboaje, ena fe crew miensa na omo so omo eka ho no Air Force o miensa no Peter Bafemi Anala, Chum Ampedu, ena fe so Ernest Ado Master Nkrofo we ena yeto ye ni a omonka atias for ho ebiem ni nyina enam 6th August helicopter crasher call so ewo adanse eye bofodu eho no ma na dwumadi omonkwa kodi na oboase enam ni nyina ye galamsey activities yi amode eho program bi share so anache say omonkwa akochekire kwan ombefa so eye community mining na enkofa how bia enfam mare o man Ghana sesisi ayensuo ni yensase nyina ase no ena afufie anto ata sa akwanhia we ekoto omo ema omo hwe omonkwa.
I expected you to stay for at least a month to help settle into our new reality. But for the love you had for our country, you had only just a week to spend with us. Before you left, Winley held you back for an extra week because she wasn't feeling well. Now I know why she was holding you back from returning to Ghana.
Nti investigations a omo ye no reporter ene omo de ba ye no bibia ekowie se ewiem sakrae anase bad weather ene constitute sa akwanhia wi ma nipa nwotwe ni nyina ehwe omo nkwa no.
But for your dedication to your work, you had to make the most difficult sacrifice to go and serve your country, leaving behind a sick new baby and a mother who was still healing. Peter, 2 weeks only. Oh, what 2 weeks those were. 2 weeks of endless kisses on baby Winley's face. I have never seen a broader smile than the little time you spent with her. I did not want you to leave, but you promised me you would come rain or shine. You would return in October for Winley's christening. God, what am I going to tell her in a few years when she starts asking for her father?
Abusia chewadwen comment section ho na fi bomodi anso be share video no ma afoforo nso ensa aka na enije ma wunya subscribe ya bomodi nso be subscribe ya mai no follow your Facebook, TikTok, Instagram and X. Arahosem a eto oman Ghana 6th August 2025 home findings na afi mpanfo akoye ewa brochimemo edi aban.